Welcome and good afternoon, everyone. This is Brad Larsen. I am your owner and founder of RentWerx, and we're going to be doing a webinar this afternoon discussing all about security deposits. So what we like to do when we start these webinars is we like to talk about ourselves because we need a few minutes of kind of downtime for people to join in what's going on in the webinar. And so in our pregame, what we had discussed was we're going to force you to listen to my latest family trip where we went to Washington, D.C. Yes, our nation's capital. It was a pretty cool trip. I took my kiddos, and so I took my kids, Drake and Cora. They're both high school sophomores, and Cora got to bring her bestie friend. So the two girls were having a good time running around D.C. as young ladies. But we got to see all the cool sites during the 4th of July. The sites being we got to see the archives where they keep the Declaration of Independence and the Bill of Rights. I thought that was absolutely fascinating. We got to see the Lincoln Memorial, the Washington Monument. We got a White House tour. That was really neat. It's something you have to do long in advance because they have to vet you. So we got to go through the White House, got some really cool pictures of that. That was a really neat tour. We got to see some great museums, but there are some that are very much ticketed in advance. And we didn't plan it out that well this time because the tickets, obviously you have to get 2, 3, 4 months in advance. You can try to get tickets to certain places like the day of, but that just didn't work out very well. So we did have a good trip. Next year might even be a repeat event because we are considering going back for the 4th of July next year, which is our 250th anniversary of our nation's founding. So 1776 plus 250 equals 2026, and we're considering going back next year. So having said a lot of that, and we're a couple minutes in, I want to dive into the main topic of this discussion in this webinar today is going to be security deposits. Now, I know it's a boring topic to begin with at certain levels. What do you need to know about security deposits? But there's a lot of history and a lot of reasons why RentWerx has now come full circle back to the way we did things 50 years ago, 100 years ago, and how that came to be, and what we have going forward with a new solution potentially for security deposits and how that can ease the burden of tenants and renting the properties. So we pre-gamed with some of the topics that we're going to talk about today, and we're going to go through all the entire life cycle of security deposits and where they started from and kind of where they went and how we've come full circle going back to the way we've done things before and the new programs coming up in the future. So the way things have been working for, I don't know, 50 years, 1,000 years. It's hard to say how long homes have been rented out per se from one landowner, property owner to a tenant. This has probably been going on through the beginning of time. And tenants would pay with crops. Tenants would pay with labor. They would rent a property and or place. And then at some point, a cash deposit and or a labor deposit or a dowry, who knows what they called it back then, was delivered to the landlord as a security, as a guarantee, as a backup that they wouldn't damage the property, that they wouldn't steal things from the property, that they would leave the property in good condition and good faith as they found the property in the very beginning. And so this cash deposit has been known as a security deposit. Now, typically this has been misguided in other states. They call it the first month's rent, last month's rent, right? And that's always been a weird thing that we've had to overcome in renting homes to folks from California, for example. They come over and we have to explain to them that, yes, you're going to be turning over the first month's rent to us, either prorated or full month or both. And there's going to be a requirement for a security deposit. No, that security deposit does not count as last month's rent. That is clearly laid out in the lease agreement. But it's something that we've had to overcome because we see different states do this as a technique that they like. They like first month's last month. Well, no, it's not. It's a first month and a cash security deposit. That deposit typically has been the equivalent plus $200 or something different. We do that to clearly differentiate to an incoming approved applicant that total deposit is not equal to 1 month's rent. This is by design, so they don't get confused. I'm renting the home for $2,000 a month. I'm going to bring you a $2,000 security deposit. Nope, we don't do that. We do a $2,200 security deposit on a $2,000 a month home. It's just easy math for everyone to understand, and it does help in the process of cleaning up tenant ledgers, because tenant ledgers are pretty important at the end. In addition to, some tenants need those tenant ledgers for buying a home and or renting their next property. It also is a feature for our credit reporting, because we do report these credit issues to the credit reporting agencies. And that's part of our resident benefits package, is that's what we do. So it helps in that process along the way. So cash deposits, going back to that, it's been around forever and ever and ever. When we first started renting homes 20 plus years ago, this is how long we've been renting homes. We started back in 2004, and it has always been typically a 1 month's rent vicinity cash deposit. So let's call this, let's get the math here straight on when this became a thing. But the fee in lieu of security deposit started to become a thing roughly 10 years ago. Melanie, would you agree? Roughly 10 years ago, maybe 8. So it became a thing roughly around then. And we started it. We were one of the first ones to do that in the San Antonio market. We called it a fee in lieu of a security deposit, a preferred tenant program. So if an approved applicant met a certain level of criteria, certain level of credit, certain level of income, and we approved them for this program, we would let them pay a monthly fee instead of a large security deposit. So the intent was to treat adults like adults, let them pay for this fee. RentWerx was backing up the owners with a double security deposit guarantee, clearly taking care of the owners first. This was not a design to necessarily benefit the tenant. We were trying to rent homes faster, and we felt it was a very good technique to do that by offering a fee in lieu of a security deposit. So again, it's real simple. So instead of a $2,200 security deposit, they were paying roughly $35 to $45 per month. And at the end of the lease, there was no security deposit. And we would bill the tenants like they just left a hotel. That was the design. And tenants had a very hard time understanding that. So there's a lot more to this, because we started this early on, self-insuring or self-assuring, or basically backing up our own selves as a warranty, as a backup of our own services to our owners, offering a free double security deposit guarantee. This is what we did way in the past, okay? And then Texas, we don't exactly know how, but Texas adopted Property Code 92.111. And we feel that they were lobbied successfully by some of these insurance companies. I don't want to name them because I may be factually incorrect, but Texas adopted a new property code into law, Property Code 92.111. You can read it today, it's still out there. And it basically says if any property manager and or individual landlord offers a fee in lieu of a security deposit, they have to follow these certain guidelines in the property code. And the first one was that they must purchase insurance with those funds. So that's fine. We fully complied with that process. It's pretty gray as it gets into this property code. Trust me on this, because I've gone through the entire thing with attorneys. I've taught this, and I've given presentations to other property managers here in Texas. So once you have to teach something, you pretty much have to learn it forwards and backwards. So I'll tell you that several attorneys have looked at this, and they said to fully comply with Property Code 92.111, you must purchase insurance. Okay, how much? Nobody knows, right? Nobody knows in the property code how much insurance you're supposed to purchase. Is it worth $1,000? Is it worth 10,000? Is it worth $1 million? We don't know. They never gave us any sort of guidance inside the property code. What do you do with change? Meaning, okay, what do you charge? What if we charged $50 a month? What if? And our insurance costs $40. Are we allowed to keep the $10? Nobody knows. The property code never stated that. It never says clearly what we're supposed to do with change. You know, I mean, the leftovers. Like you go to a convenience store and you buy a can of soda, and okay, here's $5, and the can of soda costs $2.37. What do you do with the change? Well, you put it back in your pocket. RentWerx, what do we do with the change without being targeted as selling insurance without a license. This is where it gets very, very confusing. This is why we had to get several attorneys to give us detailed guidance so we could fully comply with the property code, which we did. So what we ended up finding out is we were allowed to retain a $3 to $5 processing fee per month. That was allowable under the statute of Texas Department of Insurance and allowable under the property code. So we ended up charging $33 per month for this program, and we spent $28 per month on the insurance, which gave us approximately, I believe it was $1,500 in coverage per home. Melanie, am I correct in that figure? Staci, am I correct in that figure? It was $1,500 of insurance for that particular security deposit. Insurance is the key term. Has anyone ever been hit by, had any sort of vehicle damage and you get to file an insurance claim? You backed up too soon in your garage and took off your mirror. You bumped into somebody at the parking lot and now you have an insurance claim. So I think you get where I'm going. Insurance is insurance is insurance. We had to make a claim. The insurance adjuster would come out and look at this particular issue of a vacating tenant on the security deposit issue and make a determination on whether or not we're going to get any of those funds to cover the repairs for the home. All right, so we did fully comply with the property code, and now I want to talk pros and cons. All right, pros and cons. We had some issues there that it just didn't go well overall for the company and overall for the owners. Now, there are other companies out there that did alternative products, and I'll get into the pros and cons after this because we want to talk property code. And we also want to talk, there were other vendors out there. I'm hesitant to name them, but there were other processes and it essentially ended up all being the same. So there were vendors that did this a little differently. They would collect a fee, third party, the tenant would pay basically the third party directly, and then the third party would be responsible to reimburse RentWerx / the homeowner for damages done on behalf of the tenant. Essentially, it all boiled down to the same thing. Somebody was getting paid to guarantee that deposit at some level, either outside insurance and or a third party banking partner. And I'm trying to not name names. I'm trying to describe to you as best I can what those would look like. And there's even insurance companies that we partnered with that we were a part of that offered a product that's basically came down to being insurance. And at the end of the day, that didn't really work out that great either. RentWerx was taking big losses, and it turned out we had to basically pass that on to the owner because essentially it's the owner's home. So if the tenant vacates the property and does $500 in damage or $5,000 in damage or $50,000 in damage, it's still ultimately the homeowner's responsibility because RentWerx can only guarantee up to so much amount. We can't guarantee for $20,000 in damage, it would bankrupt us. And obviously if it got that bad, we're talking attorneys, we're talking lawsuits against the tenant. I mean, it gets to that point. And, or you're talking a homeowner's insurance claim if it gets really bad. And it gets a little messy because now we're dealing with 3 or 4 layers of insurance, which is why we mandate that homeowners they name RentWerx as additionally insured and or additionally interested in their homeowner's policy. That's a whole other discussion, but the layers of insurance that are put upon a security deposit and leasing a home get messy, sticky, and gray. And I'm trying to explain this the best we can. And it all circled back to security deposits. Okay, I've been babbling for a while. I'm going to get to some horror stories here in a minute. Bear with me. So the pros and cons of this preferred tenant program, abiding by the property code 92.111, the Texas Security Deposit Property Code, there were some pros. Okay, essentially we thought we could take less move-in funds from the tenant and get them to move in without a lot of upfront costs. That's a pro for a tenant, not necessarily a pro for the owners and or RentWerx. It would lower the barrier of entry. That was a pro for the tenant and offering the property code 92.11 fully compliant programs, preferred tenant program. We thought it would reduce the days on market. Okay, this is something that we've looked at. It's like, oh yeah, this is going to reduce the days on market substantially. We're going to be able to rent homes quicker. And of course, we keep very good metrics on everything. That's what we do as a as a professional property management company. We have metrics upon metrics upon metrics. If you saw our internal metrics, there's over 250, almost 300 rows of metrics in a spreadsheet that we keep weekly, monthly, annually, that we look at and review. Days on market is one of those. And so what we did is actually Staci, our project queen, excuse me. She's our project queen. She did this analysis. She looked at, I think it was roughly 6 months of renting, and we compared it to some of the biggest names in the business here in San Antonio, all the other property management companies, where were their days on market compared to our days on market. And we compared it to the ones that were doing cash deposits to compared to RentWerx and some of the others that were doing a fee in lieu of a security deposit. And I'm not going to name names. I could name names on the property management side, but it's just easier to kind of speak in generalities. And this boils down to something. Where am I going with this? In the end, our properties did not lease any faster with a fee in lieu of a security deposit preferred tenant program versus the cash deposit property managers. Okay, do I need to say that again? I could say it slower. Our homes did not rent any faster offering that program. And that was one of the bottom lines. So I'm giving you all the pros. I'm kind of giving you, the baby before the labor pains, but I want to talk through the cons, because this is where it starts to be like the aha moment, like, oh, now it makes even more sense, right? So the cons: tenants that would lease under this program felt like they had no responsibility for the property. They felt they paid their monthly fee in lieu of security deposit. They paid the monthly $33 a month, and they had zero responsibility for the property at the end. Clearly, that's not what we did. If you read our lease agreement, if you read our screening criteria, they are clearly responsible for every bit of damage they caused at the end. We were even collecting banking information at time of lease. Prior to them moving in, we were collecting banking information, because what we would do is the tenant would vacate. We would do our full security deposit itemization inspections. We would itemize out every single piece of damage that was caused to the property, and we would bill the tenant, just like a hotel. We had billing authorization technology built into the lease. The tenant vacates, we do our whole inspection. Okay, Mr. Tenant, this is your list of items that we're going to charge you, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. The total is going to be $1,153.13, whatever the number was. Okay, we itemize them out to the penny. We would go to charge that to the tenant, and guess what they would do? Who wants to chime in? Anyone? Bueller? Yeah, that's right. The tenant would reverse the charge. They call the bank and say, I didn't authorize that. Reverse it. Even if it was a credit card, I didn't authorize that. Reverse it. It was getting to the point where it was 70% of the tenants would reverse the charge. I don't know if that's accurate. Staci's nodding her head, north, south, yes.
Probably
I'm just
even
guessing.
a little more, I would say.
Yeah, great chime in. Maybe even a little more. Maybe 1 out of 4 would agree to it. 3 out of 4 would fight it and reverse the charge. So it got to the point then, now we have to file the insurance claim. Okay, so the insurance claim's getting filed. That means we're waiting on funds to do a make ready. We're going back to the owner to ask for funds for the make ready. And it's causing more of a vacancy because we're waiting on funds to do make readies because the tenant reversed the charge. And it goes back to the thing that I've said to my team 100 times. I've always wanted to treat adults like adults, but every time I've done that, it just burns us. We could name stories.
I think because that program was so new, we did spend a lot of time explaining to tenants what they signed at Leasing and why we did what we did, because it's such a foreign thing to them. It was great at the beginning. Great, I don't have to have a whole lot of out of pocket. But then at the end, that's when, World War III.
It really did. It caused our maintenance team to have to explain this quite a bit. It caused our property management team to try to explain to the tenants, no, you don't have a security deposit on hand because every single dollar that you gave us per month was spent in accordance with the state property code. Okay, I'm jumping in my seat. I'm trying to emphasize that we were in full compliance with the state law of what to do with those funds. And at the end, the tenant gets zero, jacko. They get a big fat bill. And obviously that's going to flip out some tenants. And you can imagine, how upset they could have been. There's no money at the end. It gave them a false sense of security. They caused more damage to the property than they would if they knew they had a security deposit that was on the line at the end of the lease agreement. They took no ownership of the property because they felt, I'm paying 33 bucks a month and I can do whatever I want and I'm good. So it really caused a bunch of negative reviews for us. And that hurts the entire process because if we can't get good reviews, tenants don't want to rent from us. If tenants don't want to rent from us, it hurts the owners. So it goes this whole big life cycle of negativity, all with just trying to be fully compliant with the Texas law. And again, trying to treat adults like adults. It just wasn't working. And again, back to this, the homes were not renting any faster. They were not. We saw that on hardcore statistics from the San Antonio Board of Realtors, the Austin Board of Realtors. We did the entire analysis and we looked at it like, this is baffling. Like we have property management companies over here that have cash deposit. They've been doing the same thing for 75 years. They're renting at exactly the same pace, maybe even a little faster than we were with this whole process of doing a fee in lieu of security deposit, preferred tenant program, move in with no money out of your pocket on security deposits. And we had it fully explained, fully marketed. And okay, at the end of the day, it was backfiring on everybody. It was backfiring on us. It was backfiring on our owners. It was causing us a lot of money and it was causing our owners to be upset about this because they didn't understand, or and I understand their position. They couldn't understand why the tenants weren't paying up. And we go back to this, like Mr. Owner and Mrs. Owner, I know we've been working together for a long time. We're in full compliance with the state law. And the state law was so poorly written, probably because they were lobbied. Let me back up a bit on the lobby thing so you fully understand. Whose best interest would it be if someone passed a law where they had to buy insurance? Okay, let's think about that. Yeah, the best interest would be the insurance companies. So the insurance companies lobbied the state and the state lawmakers getting free steak dinners or whatever, whatever grease in the wheels they got. They went ahead and passed that law. And sure as anything, guess who benefits from that law the most? The insurance companies. Okay, you get it. All right, I don't want to drag on. I'm not going to drop any names, but you get it. So after babbling all that for the last 22 minutes, I'm getting to a point. 2024, roughly 9 months ago, RentWerx went back to full cash deposits, along with several other big property management companies in San Antonio and Austin. They started to abandon this whole insurance thing because the state of Texas doesn't allow us to make any money on it. They told us every single dollar that you spend, or correction, every single dollar you collect for that fee in lieu of security deposit, you have to buy insurance. And then it's an insurance claim, and the insurance wasn't paying us enough. So we were losing money. And that is a state law we were in full compliance with. So back in 2024, towards the end of it, we just went straight back to good old fashioned cash security deposits. And it's worked out great ever since. So getting to a new solution, okay, and you guys are getting super excited. I'm hearing drum rolls in the background. Our new solution that we're working with now and going to implement here this month is we are going to have a program to where the tenants can borrow those security deposit funds. Okay, this is nothing new. Has anyone ever heard of a payday loan? Has anyone ever heard of a credit card advance? Has anyone ever heard of a small-time business loan or a personal loan? This is nothing new, but it is when we make it the easy button in our process. So every approved applicant, and only the approved applicants, will have an opportunity to press a button and borrow the security deposit money at signing. So it eliminates what they have to bring, actually reduces, not eliminate, it reduces what they have to bring to RentWerx to rent one of the properties that we're leasing. All of that is tied back into the lease agreement. So the owners are 100% protected that the tenants are going to pay the security deposit because it ties back into the lease. The benefits to the tenants are they have less they have to bring at move-in. Okay, that's the first benefit. Benefit to the owner is we feel we can still potentially offer this as a lower barrier of entry to approved applicants. We feel we can lease the homes a little bit faster because again, once this word gets out in the realtor community and or the property rental space, when we start advertising this, tenants are going to realize, oh, wow, I don't have to bring a security deposit with RentWerx. I can borrow that if I needed to. And we have kind of a small bet inside the office, myself and Staci and Amy. We feel we're going to see up to 2/3 adoption. Now I'm saving the best part for the end of this, guys, because I wanted to talk through it. In this process, the tenant that's approved, again, only an approved tenant, I'm going to say that 100 times, approved applicant, only the approved applicant gets this offer. They don't have to do any sort of further credit check. They don't have to do a background check. They're just approved. And here's the note that's been attorney drafted. We've gone through the Office of Consumer Credit here in Texas for a license, a license authority to do this program. Okay, so this has all been under a licensed authority through the state of Texas. This is going to be the easy button application process for an approved tenant. Again, the loan coincides with the lease agreement. So if we're doing a 12-month lease, we're doing a 12-month loan. 10-month lease, 10-month loan. 18-month lease, 18-month loan. Hope you get that. Here's the best part. Here's the best part. At the end of the lease, the tenant is going to have their full security deposit as a credit to be charged against any of their move-out issues. So let me say this again. If the tenant vacates the property and the property is 100% perfect, they're going to get that entire security deposit back in cash, in check, okay? They have to borrow $2,000 to move into the property at the end of the lease agreement, and the home's perfect, they're getting $2,000 back. That is a huge benefit. That is a huge win for the owners, huge win for the tenant. And we feel it's going to be a very positive program because it's going to allow an approved applicant to get into the property with less move-in funds. So we feel this is going to be a fantastic program. And also, we're going to have funds on hand under RentWerx control in escrow that we can use to make the property ready. So we don't have to go beg the owner for money. We don't have to bill the tenant and hope they don't reverse the charge. We're going to have funds on hand in the RentWerx escrow to cover those security deposit make ready items immediately. So there is not going to be a week-long, 2-week, 3-week-long lag waiting for the tenant to pay us or waiting for an insurance settlement. We'll be able to start making the property ready immediately. And that's going to benefit the owners with less vacancy time. So we feel this program is going to be a fantastic solution. We're calling it the tenant lending solution. It'll be fully disclosed. We'll offer it to whomever we feel appropriate, meaning if we start to see this program as being weirded out, we will only allow credit of like 800, okay, whatever it could be, or 650 or 700 or whatever it could be. An approved applicant is going to be the one that gets this program offered to them. And again, it's the easy button for them. We feel we're going to get a pretty high adoption rate. Yes, they're going to be paying for interest. Okay, that's anybody you borrow money from is going to charge you interest. But the benefits are going to be that they don't have to bring that full security deposit to lease signing prior to move in. The other benefit is they're going to have those funds waiting for them at the end. Once they vacate the property, it's going to be right there waiting for them. We do our full security deposit itemization and we credit that back to the tenant. Tenant gets a check at the end. What? There's a check? Oh my God, this is unique. We take good pride, great pride in that security deposit itemization being 100% legitimate, meaning that we can stand up in front of a judge and say, yes, we charge the tenant $387 for carpet cleaning, and we spent $387 on carpet cleaning. We only charge the tenants for what we can actually do, for the work we can actually perform, and stand up in front of a judge and say, yes, we did that work. And why am I saying that? Because we've had landlords in the past that say, yeah, charge them like, let me clarify. We've had landlords that want to take the property back and or sell the property. And at that point, they want to charge the tenant whatever they want to charge the tenant without doing the work. And we say, no, we can't do that. We have to be able to stand up in front of a judge and explain to the judge that, yes, we did the work that is shown here. And so we can totally get this resolved and make sure that the judge is satisfied with the work that was completed. So Sherry Zwick, thank you for your question. Who is providing the loan? We have a loan that's coming from the Tenant Lending Corporation. This is a licensed liability LLC company here in Texas, and it's approved through the Office of Consumer Credit. And that's going to be the company that does the loan. And again, this is all coinciding back into the lease agreement. It's all been attorney prepared, attorney approved. from the lending company, tying straight into the RentWerx lease agreement, and it all meshes up perfect. So where if the tenant doesn't meet the terms of that lease, that is an evictable offense. We could evict that tenant if they don't meet those qualifications as far as repayment. So obviously we're clearly aware of that. We've been doing this for a long time. We know the game as far as the lease agreements and what the JP judges will allow for evictions. Can we go in and evict because they didn't empty their dishwasher? No. Okay. We can't evict for that. Can we evict for a non-payment of a security deposit in the terms of the lease agreement? Yes. That is an evictable offense. You start getting into pets, another thing, it gets really muddy. And sometimes JP judges won't evict or want to evict for something like that. But in this instance, we've been assured by the attorneys that we've been working with that this is an evictable offense because it's dollars and cents.
Sure.
Did the tenant pay X on X date? Yes, no. Okay, the answer is no, then all right, here's your eviction, here's your writ of possession, have a nice day. That's an absolutely concrete thing that we could evict for. And this is how we feel we can offer this program in good faith to guarantee our owners. By the way, RentWerx still does have a security deposit guarantee. That's still a program that's out there. So there is always that to fall back on. Okay, this is something that we are adamant about, that we do have that still going on in our process. So that is 31 minutes of a webinar talking about our new security deposit program. And this is an optional thing for the tenants. I want to make sure you're clear on that. Tenants do not have to opt into this. Okay, this is opt-in. They have to press a bunch of buttons. They have to sign a bunch of forms. It's going to be something that is optional for the approved applicants only, not just any applicant out there, not just any tenant. And it will also be applied to any renewal tenants. So if we have tenants that are on the renewal program, once this is rolled out, tenants that are paying the fee in lieu of security deposit or have been, which are all pretty much getting cycled off of now. But if there are any lingering tenants out there that are still under that fee in lieu of security deposit program, in compliance with Property Code 92.111, in compliance with the Texas law that we were in compliance with, if there are any out there, we'll be able to push them to this program so they could potentially adopt that if they needed to. Okay, this is something that a lot of property managers are doing. They're breaking their security deposit up in chunks. Pay me half now, pay me half next month. This is not a new program necessarily. It's just a method of doing it correctly on a commercial level that is guaranteeing that RentWerx is in compliance and the owners are in compliance, because the owners are a trickle-down effect from what RentWerx does. If there were ever to be some sort of legal issue, any attorney is going to wrap in the owner just like they're going to wrap in RentWerx. So we vetted this program. We've been attorney approved, attorney compliance with all of our new lease agreements and all of our forms. And we'll be rolling this out here quickly this month. I'll give kudos to Staci, our project queen. And we call her that. I don't know if she likes that label. I think it's on her desk, isn't it?
Queen, Brad.
Special projects queen, right. So I think that's on her door, is it not? Is it not on your office door?
Yeah,
she takes great pride in that. So she has a finance background. She went to UTSA, has a degree in finance. So no better person to take this challenge on. And it helps us to be able to explain it in our leasing process to an approved applicant, giving them this option. So as we roll this out this month, you may get wind of it. You may see something about it in the security deposit. You may talk to the leasing team and say, what's going on with this? I didn't understand it. This is part of why we're doing this webinar, so we can record it and also share it with the owners that are, they may have questions. They may not want to watch 35 or 40 minutes of a webinar to get this. So we'll be working up more frequently asked questions to be able to better explain this in writing, and maybe even drop a policy letter to share with our owners about what's going on with this new program. So to wrap this up, I want to say thank you for watching the webinar with us. We hope you have learned something about the history of security deposits and why this has come full circle. I wanted to do an episode on this because there's just a lot to explain when you're talking about the history of this and why RentWerx has come full circle on going from cash to the property code compliance to third-party vendors back to cash. And now we have found a way to offer tenants a new solution to come in and rent with RentWerx. So appreciate all your time here today. Thank you, and we'll see you at the next webinar. Appreciate it. Bye-bye.